What if the person who humiliated you in public never realized that moment would cost him everything? Welcome to a place where silence isn't weakness, respectability hides rot, and power always leaves fingerprints. This channel tells stories where family celebrations turn into battlegrounds, or husbands with perfect smiles carry dangerous secrets, and where obedience is only an illusion. Here, pain is swallowed, not to forgive, but to remember. Every story unravels hidden betrayals, illegal deals, and marriages built on fear instead of love. You'll hear how quiet observation becomes strategy, how patience sharpens revenge, and how justice never needs to scream to be heard. These are stories of women who were underestimated, ignored, and mocked until the truth surfaced through courtrooms, documents, and consequences. If you believe that karma wears a tailored suit and downfall comes wrapped in dignity, you're in the right place. The moment happened under crystal lights and polite applause, during a family celebration meant to crown success. Laughter was still echoing when that man's voice cut through the room, loud and deliberate, sharpened for maximum damage. The words landed like a slap, meant to humiliate, meant to remind everyone who held power. Guests looked away. Some smiled awkwardly, others pretended not to hear. That was the performance he enjoyed most, cruelty delivered in public, protected by wealth and status. What no one noticed was how carefully the silence was chosen afterward. No tears, no argument, just a calm acceptance that looked like defeat. That illusion mattered. Years of marriage had taught him to mistake quiet for weakness, obedience for loyalty. He never questioned why personal documents were suddenly locked away, or why old emails were being reread late at night. Confidence made him careless. Behind closed doors, the truth had already been rotting for years. Hidden accounts opened under false names, business deals signed without consent, a second phone that never rang in daylight. The public insult became the spark that finally justified touching the evidence already known to exist. Screenshots were taken, dates were written down. A pattern emerged. Betrayals layered so neatly they formed a map. At home, the husband played the same role, charming, generous, respected. But the mask slipped in private, rage over small things, threats disguised as jokes, promises that changed shape by morning. The cruel outburst at the party wasn't new, it was simply louder than usual. What he believed to be control was nothing more than exposure waiting for the right moment. Family gatherings continued. Smiles stayed in place. He bragged about expansion plans, about how no one could touch him. Meanwhile, copies of contracts quietly changed hands. Bank statements found their way into a secure folder. Even his confidants began to talk once they realized silence would cost them more than truth. By the time he sensed something shifting, it was too late. That single insult, delivered so proudly in public, had turned into the excuse that allowed everything hidden to surface. Power never left the room that night. It simply changed sides. And that was the moment his downfall truly began. Respectability wrapped him like a tailored suit. In public, he was admired. Steady handshake, practiced smile, a man praised for loyalty and success. Friends trusted him with their money. Family trusted him with their future. That image took years to build, and he guarded it fiercely. What no one saw was how thin the fabric really was. At home, charm had an expiration date. Doors closed, voices dropped, and patience disappeared. Compliments turned into instructions. Jokes carried sharp edges. Love was measured by compliance. Every disagreement ended the same way, with reminders of who paid the bills and who would be ruined if the truth ever surfaced. Fear was his favorite tool, polished and reused. The first crack appeared by accident, a bank alert that didn't match any shared account. Then another, receipts with unfamiliar initials, a locked drawer that suddenly mattered more than trust. late nights at the office that never aligned with payroll records. Each detail alone meant nothing. Together, they formed a pattern too deliberate to ignore. Digging deeper revealed a man living multiple lives, shell companies created to move money quietly, business partners listed under aliases, properties purchased through relatives who asked no questions. Even worse was the past, settlements signed before the wedding, accusations buried with checks, a former employee paid generously to forget everything. Respectability wasn't earned, it was bought. The most painful betrayal wasn't financial, it was personal. Messages sent in secret, promises recycled and delivered to someone else with the same tenderness once reserved for home. Trips explained as conferences turned into evidence of intimacy elsewhere. Each discovery stripped away another layer of the man everyone applauded. Yet the mask stayed firmly in place around others. Charity events, holiday dinners, toasts made in his honor. No one suspected that the legacy he bragged about was built on fraud and silence. He believed the past was dead because it had been paid for. He believed loyalty could be enforced. What he never accounted for was patience, for how long truth can wait when it's protected, for how dangerous a calm observer becomes once every secret is known. By the time questions started reaching the wrong ears, the damage was already done. The man admired by everyone was never real, and soon neither was his protection. Silence became the safest language. Every insult was absorbed, every slight acknowledged with a nod that looked like agreement. Obedience was performed carefully, almost convincingly, because it fed his belief that control was complete. He mistook compliance for surrender, never realizing it was strategy. Pain learned how to stay hidden. Tears were saved for locked rooms and late nights when the house finally slept. In daylight, routines continued, meals prepared, schedules managed, appearances maintained. He liked things orderly, predictable, and silence gave him exactly that. It kept his temper calm and his guard down. Behind that quiet, everything was being watched. Conversations replayed mentally, dates memorized, patterns noted. His lies were lazy, repeated too often to too many people. Stories contradicted themselves when told weeks apart. Phone calls ended abruptly when footsteps approached, passwords changed, then reused. Each mistake made the next one easier to spot. Evidence gathered itself once attention sharpened. Bank statements printed and hidden inside old folders he never opened. Photos taken of documents he believed were invisible. A backup drive slipped into a drawer beneath winter scarves. Even his carelessness worked against him. Contracts left on the counter, emails still open, receipts stuffed into coat pockets without thought. Alliances formed quietly, not with grand speeches, but with careful listening. A former employee who drank too much and talked too freely, a business partner frustrated by being cut out of profits, a woman tired of being promised a future that never arrived. Trust was built through shared disappointment and mutual benefit, not emotion. At home, the act continued. Compliments were offered when expected, disagreements avoided. He grew more confident, more reckless. Power always makes men louder and sloppier. The quieter things became, the more he revealed. He believed silence meant fear. He believed obedience meant loyalty. What he never understood was that silence creates space. Space to think, space to plan, space to let the truth stack neatly instead of spilling out in chaos. By the time he sensed distance, it felt familiar enough to ignore. Everything needed was already in place long before he realized the quiet had never been submission at all. Revenge never needed raised voices or dramatic confrontations. It arrived quietly, dressed in restraint and precision. While he still believed intimidation worked, meetings were already happening in offices far from his reach. The first time that lawyer listened, there was no shock, only calm focus, as if every secret had been expected. Documents slid across polished desks, each one heavier than the last. Court filings were drafted like chess moves, every accusation tied to proof, every betrayal backed by numbers, signatures, timelines. The husband who once controlled everything through fear had no defense against facts arranged this cleanly. Hidden accounts were traced, shell companies unraveled, contracts he swore were untouchable suddenly carried forged initials and altered dates. He continued playing the role of the confident provider, unaware that sealed documents were already waiting. Dinner conversations stayed light. His laughter grew louder, fueled by the belief that nothing could reach him. That confidence was earned through years of escaping consequences. What he didn't understand was that escape ends when someone finally knows where to aim. The lawyer understood men like him, how reputation mattered more than freedom, how exposure terrified them more than loss. Filings were timed to coincide with business deadlines. Subpoenas arrived just before investor meetings. Notices were sent to banks that once answered only his calls. Each move was legal, silent, and devastating. When he finally realized something was wrong, it showed in small ways. Phone calls returned slower, meetings canceled without explanation. His name appeared on documents he never expected to see. The charm faded under pressure, revealing anger and panic he could no longer control. The mask didn't slip, it shattered. In court, there was no shouting, just records read aloud, numbers projected on screens, witnesses who once protected him now protecting themselves. The legacy he bragged about was dissected piece by piece, reduced to evidence. Every betrayal became public record, every threat lost its power under oath. Watching it unfold required no celebration. Justice wasn't emotional, it was thorough. It stripped him of the tools he used to dominate: money, secrecy, influence. What remained was a man forced to confront the truth he buried for years. The man who believed he was untouchable learned too late that silence, patience, and the right lawyer are far more dangerous than fear. If this story pulled you in, it's because somewhere deep down, truth always resonates. These stories are reminders that silence can be powerful, patience can be deadly, and justice always arrives right on time. If you want more real, intense stories about hidden betrayals, family drama, and powerful men exposed by their own secrets, make sure to like this video. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss a story where control collapses and the truth finally speaks. Your support keeps these stories coming, and the next one might be even closer to home than you expect.